Okay. You want to check and see if they feedback each other, or we're probably good?
Well, look here. All he said I had to do was press this. And oh, wait. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Push it.
So you got to push it instead of press it. That's what it is.
They probably won't need me to use it. I'm pretty loud. Testing. Okay. I'll ask them.
Yeah. And I do have several things that I have to say. So I
Okay.
can say before or after.
You should do it before. That's fine. Does that work for you? Yeah. And you, where's that clicker over there? Thanks, Lord. How's your summer looking? You gonna do anything fun? I bet. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, the camps. I'm sorry.
We had all that going on. So today we're
Whenever
dressed like this because we've been loading cars.
Oh, I don't blame you. I mean,
It's hot.
I didn't think about that because this is not. Because it's going to be really loud if I use that. Do what?
It's going to be a delay.
Yeah, they've got me on this mic. So this mic is just for the live. So y'all good? See how loud this is? I'm super loud, so I apologize. So for the virtual people,
Yeah, virtual's good. Let me check. We're checking sound on virtual right now. I've got. Okay, let me hook you in, and we're doing.
oh, you want me to talk? Okay. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, 10. Hello, hello.
No, you all do not need to join the meet. But I'm gonna go over a couple things
Okay.
that I need to go over with you real quick.
Yes, ma'am.
And I need to stand close to you. He said.
Okay,
Is that
okay. Yep, absolutely.
Okay, great.
Here, let me go over here so you can stand.
Yeah, that's perfect.
There we go.
All right. Good afternoon to everybody. Thank y'all for being here. Just got a couple of little things to say from Tony Stinnett. Number one, please be reminded that rising ninth graders, those are the students that are currently in eighth grade, cannot participate in any high school activities until school is officially out. We do not end the school year until 11:30 on June 1, 2021. Therefore, rising ninth graders should not be participating in any activities until after this date. Number two, weight equipment. If you have old equipment, Kevin Townsend has a contact that you can refurbish and update your weight equipment. Third reminder here, students need physicals for the new school year. No participation until a student has a physical. Make sure all coaches are following their sports-specific TSSAA guidelines for summer. There is a link to that. If you do not have that, Tony Stinnett can forward that to you. You need to make sure that all coaches have completed your trainings that are required by TSSAA before they begin having any contact with student athletes. This includes head coaches, assistant coaches, and volunteer coaches. Also, be reminded, volunteer coaches have to complete the background check early. All uniforms and apparel must be ordered through BSN. You cannot order anything through the athletic shop, Bacon, or other sporting good shops. Today you have received a link for attendance. You must complete that link for attendance to be counted as here. For those of you who are online, you need to make sure you do that. And then at the completion of this training, all coaches have to complete that hazing quiz. Okay? I can't answer any questions.
Okay, great. By the way, my name's Chris McCarty. If you've ever met me before, I'm sorry. It's usually not for a fun situation. If you haven't met me, great. That's also a good thing. It's only weird when my wife doesn't want to see me. Everybody else, I totally get it. I am the school board's attorney. I've been the school board's attorney for quite a while now. My mentor, Dennis Jarvis, was the school board's attorney for 40 years, even before me. So we've been doing this a while. I'm not going to go through a whole spiel about me. I'm from Seymour, grew up in Seymour, went to Seymour, taught at Seymour, went back to law school. So that's the story. What we're here to talk about today is we have to do this every year, so I appreciate you guys being here. I understand it's by order, and that's okay. I'm used to that. Most of the time when people are listening to me, it's by order as well, so I get it. We have to talk about child abuse. We have to talk about hazing. We have to talk about those things. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, even if you're virtual right now, I'm happy to answer them. Okay? Any situations that come up, I mean, I like to make things fun. I'll be honest with you, I can't really make this topic fun. It's just not possible, so I got to be serious about it. We all have to be serious about it. This is going to apply to things beyond coaching. No question about it. It's going to apply to things beyond coaching. It's going to apply to things beyond extracurricular activities. But it's a good thing to know, okay? So we'll just jump on into it. We're going to start with the child abuse stuff because that part of the law has changed. I'm going to tell you right now, the hazing stuff and hazing law has not changed in Tennessee for a long time, all right? A lot of people were going to think, well, wait, that's not the case. It's been more than 10 years since we've had anti-hazing statutes here in Tennessee, all right? And I also want to be clear, and we'll talk about hazing at the end, but let's just say it from the start. Just making kids do certain things as part of a team, as long as it's nonviolent, as long as it's not going to hurt them, that's not hazing. Hazing is something that can or does cause harm, okay? Can is a big word there, all right? Putting them in a threatening situation can be hazing, but it's bigger than just, making a kid. When I was growing up, for example, playing at Seymour, we were freshmen, we had to carry the tackling dummies, okay? They didn't hurt me. Didn't hurt me mentally, didn't hurt me physically. It was literally like 0.5 pounds to carry a tackling dummy. That's not hazing. It's still not hazing under law, okay? But literally, I'll tell you this story because it's been more than 20 years since I was the soccer coach at Seymour. We had a situation at Seymour about 20 years ago where the soccer team was having to literally, as part of being on that team, the freshmen, when you're a freshman, you guys see the corner flags? You know what a corner flag looks like? It's like a little tiny piece of PVC pipe that's about 4 feet tall. All right. So literally what they'd have to do is put their hands on the goal, and they'd take that corner flag, the seniors would, and whip them across the back of the leg with it, like a baseball swing. Let me be clear. That's hazing. Okay? That's hazing. So we'll talk about it more in detail, but again, there's a lot of things in between there. Let's talk about child abuse first. So last year, on June 3rd, the Tennessee House of Representatives, and by the way, it's good to see you guys in person. Those of you virtually, I don't see you, so I can't say that about it, but I do like being around people again. I will say that as a positive, even if I'm having to talk about this. So last year, June 3rd, the Tennessee House passed this bill, which is House Bill 2461. The Senate passed it on June 11th. Governor Lee signed it into law. It's been in law now for a year, roughly a year. All right, so this was effective even last year. We weren't dealing with it as much, candidly, because we didn't have every kid in school. When we did have kids in school, they were separated. We just weren't. You guys know how different last year was. I don't have to explain it to you, okay? I'll just be happy it's over just like you are. Here's the new requirements, all right? And let me first start with this. Let's do this. Tell me what the rules were before last year for child abuse. Somebody interact with me. What do you got to do? Kid comes to school. They're in your class, whether they're on your team or in your class, and you see, we're going to be blunt today, you see literally a bruise that looks like a male handprint on their arm, where somebody squeezed them so hard it's bruised them the shape of a hand. What do you do? Before. Somebody. I'm going to call on you. What do you got to do? Come on. Make a report to who? Your supervisor? So I do want you to tell your supervisor too, But remember, go ahead.
Yeah, if now, if you don't pass it, you pass that step, you have to go ahead and make that call, but you can get somebody to help you.
There you go. Perfect answer, right? So what Tennessee has gone away from, and we got to be real careful about it, is most states have gone away from it too, is what we call institutional reporting. Institutional reporting you don't do anymore. That'll get you in a lot of trouble. Now, you can report it to our institution. We want you to. You're going to see that in a second. But you also can't absolve yourself of the personal responsibility of reporting it. Okay? And in fact, it's a crime. That's not just for teachers. That's for anybody. If I'm a nurse at a hospital and I don't report it, that's a crime. If I'm a janitor at a school and I don't report it, that's a crime. Okay? It's just, in Tennessee, if any citizen that has a reasonable belief that child abuse is occurring that doesn't report it, if they're found later to have basically hidden it, that's a crime. It's a misdemeanor, but it's not a good thing. I'll go ahead and be very blunt with people. If you ever get accused or convicted of failing to report child abuse, if you think you're going to keep a teaching license, you are incorrect, even though it's a misdemeanor. Okay? Let me go back. So the reason we've gone away from institutional reporting is I'll sum it up in 2 words, and I hope there's no Penn State people in the crowd. Joe Paterno. Okay? Anybody know the story? What happened with Sandusky? All right, what happened with Jerry Sandusky, he was the longtime defensive coordinator at Penn State, assistant head coach, very close to Joe Paterno. All right, when Mike McQuarrie, who was a longtime coach at Penn State, decided that he walked in one day and saw, I'm not going to go into details, but saw Jerry Sandusky with some boys in a shower doing things that certainly should never have been done on this world. Mike McQuarrie reported that to who? The cops? Nope. Reported it to his boss, who was Joe Paterno. Who did Joe Paterno report it to? The cops? No, his athletic director. Who did the athletic director report it to? The cops? No, the president of the university. All 3 of those people, by the way, at one point were accused criminally of failing to report. And I'll say this, I'm not defending Joe Paterno in that situation, but I will say this. I do understand where that happens, because that was the model for 100 years. The model was we report things institutionally, and our boss decides if it goes to the cops or if it goes to the authorities. I just need to make sure you guys know that world is over. And the law is clear that we can't do that anymore. All right, so if you're the one with the information, you yourself have to make sure it's reported. Now, like you said, one way of doing that is you go into your assistant principal or your athletic director's office and you say, hey, here's what I saw today. Here's what I think. Would you be on the phone with me when we call DCS? That's totally great. And we want you to do it. We want you to be comfortable. But I just want you to know it's your personal responsibility, and I can't change that. Neither can the school system. That's what the law says. All right. So, and by the way, go Scots, like shirt. That is the model that we've used for years, and that model was also, we had to report it to who? It was an either or. It was DCS or local law enforcement, right? So reporting it to your SRO, literally just your SRO, was good enough. It's great. And if you don't want to call DCS, because, and I'll say this on video, DCS is not always as responsive as we like, and I have to sort of grin when I say that even. A lot of our employees don't trust DCS. I get it. So they report it to the SRO, and that's been totally fine. Some employees, for years and years, didn't want to do that because they knew that DCS is the only way to do it confidentially. You can make an anonymous report if you use the DCS hotline. You can't really do that if you file a criminal warrant with the SRO, okay? Both those paths are fine under the law. Now, I want you guys to understand, though, that as of last year, the law for school employees has changed. Okay, the law for nurses, doctors, everybody else in the state of Tennessee on reporting is the exact same it used to be. So I'll say this too to make this more complicated. If you're working in your Sunday school for your church and you happen to see abuse, hopefully you don't, the old law would apply. All you have to do is call DCS or the SRO or Sheriff's Department employee or police officer. Either or. It's only when you're working in your school capacity as a teacher, as a guidance counselor, as a custodian, as a coach, that now this new law applies. You guys with me? All right. So what does it basically do? What are the changes? All right, the new, sorry, go back. Maybe that'll work in a second. Maybe not. This is enthralling. There we go. Okay. All right. What does it change? New requirements for how suspected abuse is reported, which agencies must receive reports. That's changed. Individual duties that all school employees possess. I always have to remind people of this. There is no such things as teachers only or certified employees only reporting requirements. This is all of our employees. Our bus drivers, our cafeteria personnel, our coaches. I don't care if you're part-time or not. This is everybody. All right? Training required for all school employees. That's one thing we're doing right here, okay? Because it is required every year now that we go through this training. Record keeping, confidentiality, etc. All right, so let's just go through them in general. All right, here's what the new requirements are. I'll just read it. If a school teacher, school official, or other school personnel has knowledge or reasonable cause. All right, so let's stop there for a second. What does that mean? Right? That's what people always ask. What does that mean? It literally means, the best way to understand it, I'm not going to give you some textbook definition, I'm just going to say this to you. If in your gut, as an experienced person that deals with kids, you think, I'm worried this kid's getting abused, report it. That's my rule. I want to go with your gut over some definition. Period. If you think, I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight because I'm worried about this kid, report it. Because here's why. And you're going to see me say this again. There is no downside at all to making a good faith report. There is a lot of downside to not making a good faith report. There is zero to making a good faith report. What do I mean by that? You cannot be sued civilly. You cannot be accused of anything. Even if you get it wrong. Even if you're wrong and they do a full investigation and find that kid wasn't abused, kid's just clumsy. Okay? I'm not being flippant. Sometimes that could happen. If they do that and you, good faith, just made the report to watch out for that kid, there is nothing legally that can be done to you. There is a full immunity provision in this statute that makes it very clear you are good to make that report. The only time you can get in trouble for making a report is if you make a malicious report. You probably understand what that is, right? That is, and where this comes up the most, I'm just going to be very blunt, is in divorce proceedings. Right? You have one parent trying to get an up and an advantage in a divorce proceeding, so what do? And I'm not saying they're always lying. I don't think they are. I think these things are a lot of times are reported for good reason. But if you have that situation and you have a parent that has bad intentions and they report the other parent for abuse and they're lying, now that is a crime. That can get that person in trouble. But that's totally different than you thinking something might be happening, wanting to be safe, and making the report. That's fully protected. Okay? All right. So if you have reasonable cause or knowledge to suspect that a child who attends the school may be a victim of child abuse or child sexual abuse, sufficient to require yada, 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 then the school teacher, school official, or other school personnel must follow the procedures outlined in this subsection. Let's keep going. Here we go. All right. If a child voluntarily discloses information about possible abuse, the child must be provided a quiet, private place to speak, and the person receiving the information must listen openly and speak at the child's level in a positive, non-judgmental tone. That is brand new to the statute. This is a new requirement, completely new. All right? So what we have to be careful about now, first of all, I'm going to explain why that's in there. If you guys know any assistant district attorneys, anybody that's ever prosecuted child sexual crimes or child abuse crimes, what they'll tell you is one of the worst things that can happen to convict a bad guy is that kid is asked too many questions by too many people early on. Because kids, and we all know this, especially the younger they get, are very impressionable. It is not hard to basically implant information in their heads by asking leading questions. So if a kid is scared and they are a victim of abuse, and you, with the best of intentions, because you know you don't like their dad, and you say, did your dad do something to you? That is a very, very bad question for us. Because now, later, that defense attorney is going to get it, and they're going to realize the first time anybody ever asked this kid about that abuse is somebody saying, did your dad do it? That seems like the kid has been told who did it, has been told who we want to have done it, and the kid may or may not have answered the way they thought you wanted them to, which is what word? Yes. Right? So open-ended questions are fine. Who hurt you? What happened? When did this happen? How often does it happen? So open-ended questions are always going to be what? Who, what, when, why, where. If you use those type of questions, you're totally fine. But again, don't add a name. Don't even add a gender. Was this one of the guys living at your house? Maybe they live with an uncle and 2 brothers. Don't do that. Who doesn't suggest anything other than a human being. And we know it's a human being. I think we can go that far. Right? So just remember, when you're asking those initial questions, we don't want you going any deeper. No leading questions, no anything like that. And just a basic 10,000 foot who, what, when, where is about as far as you go. Make sense? All right, and again, this is not me saying it. This is the law. And the reason it's in there, unequivocally, every day I'll tell you this that's ever done sex crimes, is because they were losing too many cases by too many kids getting interviewed too many times early. Okay? We've got to speak at the level. We have to make sure it's in a private place. So make sure, if you happen to be the one getting that report, you cannot do it, certainly, I don't think any of y'all would, by the way, in front of the team, in front of the kid's friend, anything like that. If you want to have another adult present, great. That's what we recommend. But we don't want any other kids present. We want to take them to a quiet place. If this is at school, by the way, and you guys are going to hear this talked about in a second, and a lot of you might already know who it is, every one of our schools now has a designated child abuse coordinator. Every single school in this county, every single school in this state has one. In fact, we have an alternate child abuse coordinator in every single school in this county. If you don't know who that is, just ask. Okay? But anytime you want to involve that child abuse coordinator now, we want you to do that as early as possible. Because what you're going to learn in a second is they have to be involved in it now. They have to be. They have to be involved in the reporting process. They have to be involved in the documentation process, everything. So if you're at school when this happens, bring them in as early as possible. All right? A lot of times that's going to be our guidance counselor too. So we really want them, they're more trained in asking the questions. It's preferable if they ask the questions rather than everybody else. You guys understand that, right? Because they're going to do it more. They're going to get better at it. If this happens after school, which unfortunately is the case sometimes with team situations, it's going to be at a practice. It's going to be maybe on the bus after a game. It's going to be on a weekend tournament. And they tell you that, yeah, we understand that you guys are going to be more limited there. Do the best you can do, but try to find a private place and try to find another adult who can listen in. If you happen to be the only adult present, get another adult on the phone. Literally just call them up, put them on speaker, and have them listen in as well. I always want you guys to have someone else present when you're doing that type of an interview, though, to protect yourselves and also to protect the kid. Okay? Make sense? All right. All right. So here's all the new stuff, and there won't be a quiz on this part, by the way. The person receiving the information, now in the law, must allow the child to say what happened in the child's own words. Again, we don't suggest it. We use open-ended questions. Number 2, avoid conducting an investigation by asking detailed questions. So once you get the basic information where the child basically says something, you say, what happened or who did this, if the child literally just says, my dad, and stops talking, that's all we need. Okay? We don't want to shut them up, but once they're done talking and they've given us enough to make a report, we don't want them to keep going actually at this level. What we want them to do is do the full sort of interview, and the first time they say it, we want that to be conducted by a trained professional that does forensic child interviews. They're going to do it on tape. They're going to do it in a controlled environment, a comfortable environment, and they're going to do it in a very open-ended way to give us a better chance of convicting the bad guy. Okay? So again, they just say one word. You say, who hurt you? And they say, my dad, my uncle, my mom. We're good if they want to be quiet then. If they keep going, just let them go. But we don't need much more than that at the school level. Make sense? All right. Make every effort to write down the child's exact words. Again, we have to document that. All right, so try to get down what they say. If that's not you, it can be someone else. What I recommend is if you're the one actually having to ask the questions, have the other person that's with you or the other person on the phone be the note taker. All right? If you are there as the person who received the report or makes the report with the child abuse coordinator, you be the note taker. Let them ask the questions. Okay? Or just work that out amongst yourselves. But what's obviously hard practically, if you ever had to do this, is asking the questions and writing everything down. All right? Don't try to do that. All right? Have the other person do it. Refrain from making any statements about the child's alleged abuse, the abuser, etc. Immediately notify the school child abuse coordinator and report the information to the department and law enforcement. Okay, number 5 is the biggest change by far. Let's focus on that. Under the old law, who did I say you had to report it to? Or, there was a big word, right? Or. Law enforcement or DCS. It also, by the way, says the local juvenile judge. I always ignore that part because that's a dumb part of the statute, because juvenile judges are not set up to take those calls. Okay, so just ignore that exists. It used to be DCS or law enforcement. Now it's what? It's and. It's 3 separate people every time you have to report it to comply with the law. That is a big change. You have to be part of a DCS report. You have to be part of the law enforcement report. And you have to report it to the school's child abuse coordinator or the alternate child abuse coordinator if the coordinator's not there. Again, if you don't know who that is, just ask. Okay, you guys following me so far? All right. But you, to absolve yourself and make sure you're protected, you want to make sure you're involved in all 3 of those parts. Now, the child abuse coordinator, if you want them to run with it and actually make the report, I'm just telling you, you need to be present when it happens. So if somebody later says, did you report it? Did you fulfill your duties? Yes, ma'am, or yes, sir, I did. I was there at every step of the way. Make sense so far? All right. Told you, I wish I could make this more fun, but this is just not a fun topic. We'll go. I'm going to start praying over this thing. There we go. Is that it? I planned in these pauses. Okay. So open-ended questions. Again, I'm not going to go through every single one, but just gives you an example. So how did you get to work? Tell me about your relationship with your boss. What did you manage to accomplish on the trip? What happened at the meeting? Those are examples. They don't end in a yes or a no automatically. You want to stay away from questions that automatically give you a yes, no, or one-word answer. Those are leading questions. All right? Do you get to work by driving, busing, or walking? There's only one answer there, right? Do you get on well with your boss? Yes or no? Was your trip successful? Yes or no? Did you have a good meeting? See, things like that, even that last question, think about it, that suggests an answer. Now, as adults, we have enough confidence to where even if you say, did you have a good meeting? I might say, no. I'm an adult. I have my own opinions, right? But if you're a 3rd grader and you say to your 3rd grader, did you have a good day? They take that as you want them to say they had a good day. That's absolutely how they take it. Talk to any forensic interviewer. All right? If you say, how did your day go? You might actually get the more honest answer. And that's why we want to be very careful about those questions when we ask. If you say to a kid, did someone hurt you? That's different. You're suggesting that you want them to say someone did. If you say, how did you get hurt? How did you get that bruise on your arm? Then they can answer any way they want and really come up with the honest answer, hopefully. Okay? All right. New requirements. School teachers, school officials. This is a big one too, because this is different than what we've done before. I don't know why this is in the law, but I have to tell you it's in there. All right? School teachers, school officials, and other school personnel should be observant of any bruising, injuries, markings, etc., that may be the result of child abuse, and immediately report any suspicions to the school's child abuse coordinator. We just talked about that. But you guys cannot take any photographs. We used to say, especially if there's no one else present, if they got something on their arm, something on their neck, and we want to document it, that's a good time to do it. The law says do not do that. Why? Because they want the police or DCS to take those photographs. And that comes into a chain of evidence issue, which goes into criminal trials that I'm not going to bore you with. But again, every step of this law is about getting more convictions. That's what it's about, if you want to summarize it. Okay? So again, don't take the pictures yourself. If the SRO is automatically there, they can take as many pictures as they want. We just can't do it on our phones. You with me? All right. All right. Y'all got any questions so far? This is a fun topic, right? Yeah. Okay. Upon receiving the report of child abuse or child sexual abuse, the child abuse coordinator must, along with the reporting school personnel, so you're required to be part of it, who obtain the information, report any suspected child abuse to law enforcement and the department. So one thing that's different that goes opposite of what we talked about earlier is, who's the first person that you do need to report this to if you're at school? The child abuse coordinator. because they're actually supposed to be part of, they are required legally to be with you when the report to law enforcement and the report to DCS is made. So that's flipped a little bit. Now, you still have to be part of it, which we've talked about, but they need to be your first call. So let's say, for example, you're on a trip and you're coaching ball, right? And you played Jeffco that night, and hopefully you beat them. And you're coming back, and you're on the team bus, and it's 9:30 at night, and that kid who's really quiet all of a sudden confides something into you they've never confided to anybody else before. What do you do? Come on, tell me. What do you do? Say it again. Call the coordinator. Call the coordinator. What happens if the coordinator doesn't answer? Leave a message. I like that. That's a good one. Even a text message is great. Follow up with the text. Take a screen cap of it. I like your style. What do you do after that, though? Call the alternate. Agreed. Okay, alternate, whoever that is, right? And if you don't know who it is, by the way, call the principal. We're good with that. But what do you do? Let's just say none of them, I don't think this is going to happen, but let's say none of them answer. What do you do? Yes, sir. You spoke up. Thank you for doing it. You're good, man. No. There you go. Yeah. Do not worry about this part, okay? That's the exact right answer. Just go with your gut, okay? That's why I asked you. If we just miss, just think about it two different ways. You got two choices there. None of them are great. All right. One choice is we wait till the morning until the child abuse coordinator can be part of the phone call, and then we call the cops, and that's 12, 13, 14 hours later after this kid's gone home, right? Or we go ahead and say, well, we tried to let the child abuse coordinator know. Let's go ahead and let the authorities know. That's the right answer. Because one answer protects the kid, the other answer protects procedure. I always pick safety over procedure, right? So if that ever happens, and hopefully it doesn't, I just want you guys to know, don't worry about this part. Go ahead and make the call, at least to the sheriff's department. At least to the sheriff's department. All right, because candidly, they're the only ones that are going to act quick enough to do anything about it that night, if you want the honest truth about it. Okay, and I'll say that if DCS wants to watch this video. And if the next morning you want to go ahead with the child abuse coordinator and make that DCS call, great. But make sure the law enforcement is told that night. That's what I would do if that happened to me. Make sense? Because I really want law enforcement in that situation to answer this question for me, which is, okay, this kid just told me that named relative is abusing them. I'm about to get, in 10 minutes, we're going to be back in that parking lot, and that relative is going to be picking them up. You need to tell me what to do. I want law enforcement making that call, not you. No offense. That's their decision, not ours. Make sense? Okay. Again, hopefully you're never in that situation. I will tell you guys a crazy story, though, because this is just how this stuff works. You just never know. So one time, I won't name the school, I got woken up at 6:30 in the morning by a principal who's now retired. And she said, Chris, I've got the FBI here, and they want to talk to you. That was literally how I woke up. And so I go, okay. I was up by then, by the way. And she put him on the phone, and it was an agent, and he said, sir, I understand you're the school system attorney. We're here, we've tracked down a kidnapper who has kidnapped a student. It's his child, and he's been on the run for a few years, and that we found out the child is enrolled in one of your schools, and we want to talk through how we think we should get that kid off the bus this morning. So that was how I woke up. And by the way, there was no game plan to that. We just sort of figured it out. But you just never know how this job's going to go, your job or mine, right? Because schools are different and kids are different every daggum day. All right, so who all must be now must be informed? In a perfect scenario, coordinator, police, DCS. That's literally your order. Why am I usually going to say that we're going to report it to law enforcement second? It's practical. Who's in the building? Your SRO. Is there a DCS agent in the building? No. I would much rather us tell the person who's live in there, because they're going to be able to act quicker more often than not than somebody on a DCS hotline. All right, so let's let the SRO know second, okay? All right, all information regarding these suspected abuse claims must be maintained by the school child abuse coordinator in a confidential file separate from the child's educational files. Why am I telling you that? Because one thing that is clear from this new statute that I got to have everybody understand is that there was a way under the old statute for school personnel and any Tennessee citizen to make a confidential report of abuse. I need to tell you unequivocally now that is not possible for school personnel. You hear me? So the moment you make that report, I have to be honest with y'all, it's going to be discoverable. The perp is going to know. When they get a lawyer and they're going to know who made their first report, there's going to be written records of it, and it's required. There's going to be a law enforcement record of it. There's going to be a school record of it. That's the law. Okay? So I can't lie to you guys and tell you there's a way to do this confidentially anymore. There's not. But you still got to do it. Okay? Any questions on that? Now, if you work in your Sunday school and you want to make a confidential report, you can still do it. You're not in your school capacity. But if you're in any school capacity now, it's going to be this process, and it's not going to be confidential. Well, it's not going to be confidential in terms of the criminal process. We're not going to tell everybody you did it. It's going to be a confidential file. Nobody's going to talk about it other than you and the coordinator and the principal. Okay? It's not going to be the talk of school. I'm just saying once the criminal process starts, if the person decides they want to fight it and they want to defend themselves, it is very possible that you are a witness in that case. I'm not going to lie to you. Okay? All right, this basically just says, shall not provide any information about the child abuse. That's no problem. The coordinator's going to handle that, so I'm not going to go over that with y'all in detail. All right, again, that just talks about that we have to have, every school has to have a child abuse coordinator and an alternate child abuse coordinator. Again, I do think everybody should know who those people are. If you don't, let's just make sure you find out sometime before the school year starts. We talked about, these are basically just the requirements of the child abuse coordinator themselves, all right, and they talk about the type of training they receive. Again, are any of you guys child abuse coordinators? Is there a child abuse coordinator in this room? I didn't think so, so I'm not going to bother with going through it. Oh, you do have one? Oh, hey, how are you? Thanks for doing it. We appreciate it. You seem excited about it, right? No, really, I appreciate you doing that. All right, let's just go to hazing. Yes, sir, go ahead. Yeah, sure.
Instead of writing notes, would recording the conversation on the phone be advisable or no?
Okay, great question. I'm going to repeat it so everybody can hear it. Is that okay? So the question was, instead of writing notes, would it be advisable, I'm going to say preferable even, that we just use like a voice note on an iPhone, right? That is a personal call. There's nothing that in the statute says you can't do that. I'm going to actually tell you that if it was me, I would write the notes, okay? Because here's why. Any defense attorney, no matter how well you do it, they're going to pick apart something. They're going to say your inflection, even though it was an open-ended question, your inflection was leading. They're going to say you're inferring, that the pause indicated that, you can tell that, this is how I think, right? That the pause indicated that you weren't happy with their first answer. Things like that. So it's not that I think there's anything wrong with it, it's that I know how attorneys work. And I worry that they would utilize that recording in a way that you're probably not thinking of. Whereas with the notes, now I want to answer your question to this too. How do you take those notes? Let me ask you, so I've got general tips on documentation that are very important to me, okay? Does anybody know, you can't answer this question by the way because you do know. Does anybody know who Joe Friday is? See, yeah, okay. No, see, this is why I'm getting so old now. You guys are not going to tell me you know? Okay, thank you, okay. All right, so Joe Friday's this character on an old show called Dragnet. All right, he had a famous line, what was it? There you go, see, you guys know, you're playing possum on me. Okay, so Joe Friday's line was, he was super type A, and he was an investigator, and he'd say, just the facts, ma'am, I only want the facts. That is all your notes need to say. One thing that I hate in documentation are adjectives, and I hate adverbs. I don't want it to read well. I want it to read factually. You're not writing me a novel, you're writing me a factual statement. And in fact, I like bullet points better than I like narrative. Okay, because it's hard to attack those. If you write the sentence, child explained that on Tuesday, uncle did X. There's just no attacking that. You're not suggesting an ending. You're not indicating how you feel about it. The moment you start describing it in narrative, what I'm going to call sort of descriptive language, again, an attorney's going to pick that apart because they're going to say the interviewer's biased. They're going to say you wanted the kid to say X, Y, and Z. Whereas if you write it in a cold, just again, non-narrative, factual style, it's much more believable, by the way, and it's much more less likely to get attacked well. Does that make sense? All right. And that goes for everything. Anytime you're documenting any type of discipline, put something in Skyward anywhere, I will go ahead and tell you I have just an affinity. I hate adjectives in that record. Okay? Because all adjectives are doing is indicating how you feel about it, even if you don't mean for it to. And I just need you to give us facts. Fair? Now, a fact can be an observation, right? A fact can be an observation. I always say that. So if somebody tells you what they saw, heard, smelled, or felt, that's an observation. That's a fact. You can write that down. Child on this date felt, touched X. Child on this date saw Jimmy do Y. That's an observation. That's fine. But if you say at the end for some reason, and I believe this child because I've met the dad before and he is an absolute scumbag, now we got a problem. Okay? Makes sense? And by the way, that could be completely true. I've met a lot of scumbags, all right? But we just don't need that in the record keeping. Okay. All right, does that answer your question? Very long-winded way of answering it? Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on child abuse before we move on to hazing? None? You're good? I trust you. Okay. Wow, somehow I went backwards. There we go. Can anybody name who that is, by the way? There you go. It's Ogre from Revenge of the Nerds, right? Okay. Don't watch that movie. Apparently it's not politically correct anymore. So, but the reason I'm using him is this dude definitely hazed, if you've ever seen that movie. No question about it. If you want to know what hazing looks like, just watch this movie. I'm not recommending it, and whatever this guy does is called hazing. That's a great symbol of just how to do it. All right, so what does it mean under the Tennessee law? And this is straight from the statute. It means any intentional or reckless, focus on those two words. It doesn't have to be intentional. It could just be reckless. All right, I'm going to focus on that in a second. Act in this state on or off school property by one student acting alone or with others that is directed against any other student that endangers the mental is in there too, or the physical. So it doesn't have to be just physically dangerous. It could be just constantly harassment that literally puts a kid in a mental state that's not good, right? Or safety of that student that induces or coerces a student to endanger the student's mental or physical health or safety. All right, so let's play that out. The one that I use a lot, and if you've ever been through this before, first of all, I'm sorry, but that I'll use again is if the example that I gave you earlier was an easy one. It was an example of using the corner flags to literally whip another student. Unequivocally, if that's happening, A, it's got to stop, and B, I need you to make sure you're reporting that because we're going to have to take some pretty serious discipline into account. Okay? Even if hypothetically you knew another employee was allowing that to happen, we got to know about that. Okay? Because that's a pretty serious issue. Not only are we in a liability situation, but there could be criminal aspects to that. It's a big deal. Okay? But let's use a one that's not as direct. Okay? There's a team that I know of that we had to eliminate this a few years ago, not in Sevier County, by the way. That what they would do is they had an annual tradition of jumping off this local bridge that was about 20 feet high over the water. And that it was just, hey, you're joining the team, you jump off the bridge into the water. That's what we all do every year. They didn't just make the freshmen do it, they all did it. But one freshman was scared of heights, and he finally complained. And what did we determine? Is that hazing? Absolutely. Absolutely. They're not trying directly to hurt the kid, but could he be hurt? Absolutely. If you're jumping off a 20-foot bridge into water, I promise you could be hurt. All right? So things like that, it doesn't always have to be an intentional or malicious act. It could just be something reckless and stupid that you know could endanger the kid. All right? Again, the example I use of things that are not hazing, and I'll use that right here. Hazing does not include customary athletic events or similar contests or competition and is limited to those actions taken in situations created in connection with the initiation into or affiliation with any organization. Why am I using that picture? This is just 80s movies trivia. You had no idea I was going to do that today. Okay, first of all, what movie is that? And you're going to kill me if you don't know. Top Gun. Okay, good. All right. We're covering up Goose because he dies. I'm just spoiler alert, right? But why? What happens? What do they sing right here? Come on. You've lost that love and feeling. I'm not going to sing. I promise you that. But why am I using that? There you go. And these guys are all pilots. So they feel pressure to join into this song at a bar. Is that hazing? No. I use that example, by the way, too, because I played football at Maryville College. And one of the things that we would make our freshmen do, including me, is every year during camp, we would make you go sing to another table. And it was terrible when you heard me sing, by the way. And I had to sing this song more times than I can count. All right? Is that hazing? No. It's not mentally or physically abusing anyone. It's just fun, right? Things like that, little traditions like carrying the dummies or like, hey, we have the freshmen do a talent show. Those things are fine. We're not saying you can't do anything team-related, any team bonding aspects. Those things are not, by definition, harmful. So I'm not anti-team activities. I'm not if you want to have the freshmen, and I'm not just picking on freshmen, it can be middle school too, right? If you want to have them do an annual kickball tournament, it's fine, okay? It's just stuff that is harmful. Does that make sense? All right? We good? You guys understand it? Any questions about hazing? Come on, nothing? Nothing? Okay, all right. Any questions? By the way, I do like Top Gun. I'm not recommending Revenge of the Nerds, and that's for the record. Although I may have laughed at it a lot. Any questions? None. Going once? Going twice? Any online, Lori? Okay, let me check this. Well, let's do this because I'm supposed to go a little bit longer, but we went fast because you guys didn't have questions. Before we go into the school year, I'll just do this for a second, for about 5 minutes. Any questions about any laws or anything that's come about? You have me here, school attorney, that have come about that you have questions about. Anything moving forward? You have questions about the mask mandates? You have questions about anything like that? Nothing. Nobody online? Okay. I'm good with it if you are. I know this has been a tough year. Golly, this has been a tough year. Thank you for putting yourselves through it, and thank you for being there for the kids. And I mean that. God bless you this summer, and man, let's have a great next school year. Thank you so much. See you guys.